Good morning. This lesson is for my Trig-Precalc class. This is going to be for section 7.3. This is lesson number 2. Before I get started, I'd like to say I hope everyone's doing okay out there. You guys got a couple more weeks left of this most unique school year. Let's make sure we finish strong and do everything we need to do. I want to give everyone a passing grade, so please go back and do the assignments if I told you that you need to. I want to give everyone a passing grade. All right. Let's just jump right into this lesson. It's a pretty simple lesson. It actually relates to solving systems. Even though on its face it doesn't seem like it does, we actually get to the point where we're going to set up a system. So let's just talk about our goal. Our goal is going to be to decompose simple fractions. What that means is we're going to figure out what 2 or 3 fractions make up our fraction. And so for this lesson, I thought maybe I'll go back to do what we used to do in the classroom environment where we had the list of steps and we were able to follow those steps. We just realize every problem's the same. We'll look at it that way. All right. So again, this is going to be more of a I do, you do kind of lesson. All right. So let's just jump right in and you'll see it. And again, it's a quirky problem, and honestly, the problem itself is not that difficult. You just have to work through it a few times, and I have no doubt every single one of you can do this successfully. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to factor the denominator. This denominator is pretty easy to factor because both of these have an x. All right, and I'm done. So I'm done with the first step. Step 2, create new fractions with factors as denominators and a, b, c, ... as numerators. This is a factor. This is a factor. So I'm going to have a fraction that has that as a denominator. I'm going to have a fraction that has this as a denominator. And I'm going to use a, b, c, etc. as my numerator. So this is my numerator for that fraction, and this is my numerator. I don't have any more fractions, so I can't use a c. So I'm done now with step 2. I'm going to add the fractions together, which means I need to have common denominators, right? So what that means is I'm going to multiply the first fraction by x minus 2. I'm going to multiply the second fraction by x. So let's see here. So you get x minus 2. You get an x minus 2. And remember, it's x minus 2 over x minus 2 because that's the way we get the value 1. And the value 1 does not change the number. This fraction gets an x over x. Alright, so let's see here. So now this becomes ax minus 2a. Alright. Plus bx, okay. And now I have my, my denominator, x times x minus 2, which is x squared minus 2x, right? Now I'm going to reorganize this a little bit. I'm going to put the bx together with the ax, okay. And in fact, I'm going to go a little bit further with this and just call this a plus b and take out the x. So a plus bx plus or minus 2a. Right? And that's my denominator stay the same. So I'm going to check off adding the fractions together. So we're going to get to the point now we're going to set up a system. And this part's going to be a little tricky for some of you guys. Remember, this fraction that we split apart, these numerators have to combine to -10. So let's see here. I have now, I know that the numerator that I have now is a plus b x minus 2a, and that's over x squared minus 2x. All right, so here's the part that's going to be a little tricky to set up the system. we want to match parts up, okay? Now notice on this numerator there's a number with an x, but on this numerator there's no number with an x. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I have 0x minus 10, okay? So what this means is that I know that a plus b must add up to 0 because they both have the x. This has no x, this has no x. So what that means is that negative 2a must equal to negative 10. Alright, this has no b value. So I just have to find a. Once I know a, I can plug that in and find my b value, right? So that means that the a on the second equation is going to be equal to negative 5 when I divide out the negative 2. That means b must be equal to positive 5 because these two added together equal 0. So now I can go back to this step and I can write my decomposed fractions. So a is negative 5, b is 5. And that's my decomposed fraction. That's what this fraction would turn into if I was to break it into parts. Okay, so that's one example. Again, I think on this problem, maybe some of us will struggle in the fact that this has an x value and our numerator does not. We can put a 0 with that and then handle that. So I'll do one more example for you guys. Again, this is an I do, you do kind of lesson. You have like 4 problems. They're not meant to be very difficult. But again, it does go back to the systems, and we'll see on the next problem the system of equations come into play a little bit more. But yeah, it comes down to these steps. All right, let me erase this. Excuse me, Thursday. We'll step on now. And our next problem is negative 9. And I have x squared plus x minus 2. All right. So the very first thing is I'm going to factor the denominator. I can't factor out a number. I can't factor out a variable, but I can do a times c. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. So I know that I have a positive and I have a negative. My larger number is positive. So I know that I have negative 1 times 2. So this very quickly factors to x minus 1, x plus 2. So I factored the denominator. I'm going to create new fractions with factors as the denominator and a, b, c, dot, dot, dot as my numerator. So my new fractions are going to be, this is a factor, so I have x minus 1 in this denominator. And I'm going to add that to x plus 2 in that denominator. Since I only have 2 terms, I only need to use the letters a and b, so this is my first unknown numerator, and this is my second unknown numerator. All right, and so I'm going to now check that off because I've done the second step. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add fractions together. So just like before, I need to multiply this fraction by that denominator and this fraction by that denominator. So we'll go x plus 2 on this side. You don't need to worry about multiplying the denominator out because you've factored it. You've already done that work. And this one is going to be x minus 1, x minus 1. All right, so let's see here. Let's finish adding the fractions together because now they have the same denominators, right? So this becomes ax plus 2a plus bx minus 1b. And this is all over x minus 1 and then x plus 2. Let's get the numbers with the x's together and the numbers without the x's together. So now I have ax plus bx plus 2a minus 1b. And and that's over, well, let's do one more thing. Let's call this a plus b x. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this numerator equal to that numerator and have the same denominator, right? So I have a plus b x plus 2a minus 1b, and that's all over. I'm going to just put this denominator back together. X squared plus x minus 2. Alright, so again I have two numbers. I have a number that has an x, and I have two numbers that are just have no variable, no variable. So over here there's no number with the x, and again your homework problems you're not going to have any numbers with the x, so you're going to see this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say it's 0x minus 9, and now I can go about setting up my I can check it out. I can go about setting up my system, and I can solve and substitute. That noise. Alright, anyways. I know that a plus b is with the x, and so is 0. So a plus b must equal 0. I know that 2a minus 1b, that must be equal to my negative 9. So I'm going to solve this system. So the b's will cancel, and I'm left with 3a's equals negative 9. So that means that a must be equal to negative 3. And if a is equal to negative 3, then that means b must be equal to positive 3. So now I can just go back to this and plug in my a and b value, and I've finished decomposing my fraction. So a is negative 3, and that's over x minus 1, and b is 3, and that's over x plus 2. So this is my decomposed fraction. Alright, so again, it's a little tricky, but again, I hope that you guys can figure this out. Hopefully I did a good enough job explaining it to you. If you do have any questions, reach out. I will, I'll probably have to answer some questions. Tomorrow's lesson, or not tomorrow, Friday's lesson is a little bit more difficult problems, but still the same idea. And again, I hope everyone's doing okay out there. I will post the next video on Friday. Have a good week.